There is a particular kind of exhaustion that comes not from doing too much, but from planning too much and doing too little. I know it intimately. I have lived inside it. I have decorated it, pinned it to mood boards, saved it to folders on my phone with names like vision, soon, tomorrow, one day. If you've ever spent an entire Sunday afternoon deep in the spiral of outfit pairings that you've never tried on, DIY projects you haven't started, ritual tools you've been curating in your mind for months, then you've already know exactly what I mean. This planning feels productive. It feels like progress. And in a way it is, until it becomes the thing itself. Until the planning becomes the destination and the doing never arrives. This is the loop, and I am here today to tell you I broke it. Not because I became a different person, but because I finally decided to become more of myself. Deliberately, slowly, and with intention. This is the story of how I am rewriting my life, and I want to share it with you because I have a feeling you might be ready to rewrite yours too. There is science behind why planning feels so satisfying and why it can quietly become a trap. Our brains, those magnificent, strange, mischievous organs, respond to talking about doing something in nearly the same way that they respond to actually doing it. The reward pathways light up, a quiet sense of completion settles in, and suddenly you have done nothing, and yet it feels as though you have done everything. I think about how many hours I've spent in this liminal space, cycling through video after video, collecting inspiration like a magpie gathers silver. Pinterest boards overflowing with aesthetics I adored, notebooks filled with ideas I had never executed, wish lists stretching endlessly into the future. I was consuming vision, but not creating it. I was planning the life without ever living it. The dangerous thing about this particular loop is how invisible it is. It does not look like avoidance. It looks like passion. It looks like preparation. It looks like someone who cares deeply about the life they are building. And perhaps that is all true, but caring is not the same as crossing the threshold. And that threshold, I have learned, is everything. We create our own realities, and our words build the walls we live in. It is time, my love, to become the architect. The first thing I did to break the loop was, quite simply, start. I know how unsatisfying that sounds. You were waiting for some ancient secret, some ritual, some elaborate system. And here I am offering you the most unglamorous piece of wisdom imaginable. But hear me out, because it changed everything. Whatever goal I want to accomplish, I do one thing toward it. Just one. I set a timer, 5 minutes, 10 minutes. I put my phone face down on Do Not Disturb, and I take the next step. Not all the steps, not the perfect step, just the next one. I'll give you an example. I consider myself a seasoned person in the gym now, someone who genuinely loves to move, who finds ritual in the weights, who has accomplished physical feats she would have once called impossible. But I did not begin there. I began by making myself walk on the treadmill for 30 minutes every single day. That was it. No pressure, no performance, just a woman moving a belt and 30 minutes of commitment to herself. 30 minutes became an hour. The hour evolved into interval training. And then I was running miles, entire miles, and setting goals I had never even dared to dream about, simply because I started. There is no version of the woman I am becoming that does not begin with the woman who simply showed up. That is the secret hiding in plain sight. Momentum is not a myth, it's a law. And it belongs to anyone brave enough to take even the smallest first step, and then the next, and then the next after that. The second practice I have woven into this rewriting of my life is one that perhaps speaks most directly to the soul of who I am becoming. I have made my space beautiful. Not beautiful in the way of showroom or a staged photograph. Beautiful in the way of a place that holds memory and magic, curiosity and care. My home has undergone a complete shift in identity over these past several years of intentional transformation. Objects of wonder have found their places. Candles burn where there used to be clutter. Colors that resonate with the deepest parts of me have replaced the neutral, the practical, the forgettable. Every corner holds something that means something. Every surface, a small altar to the life I am choosing. What I found, what genuinely surprised me, is how profoundly environment shapes the inner world. Being surrounded by beauty makes me feel more magical. It makes me feel more inspired, more creative, more willing to reach into the ether and pull something into existence. Ideas arrive more freely. Motivation feels less like a discipline and more like a natural consequence of living inside a space that reflects who I truly am. Started to wonder if this is what artists have always known, that beauty is not a luxury, but a catalyst, that a thoughtfully tended space is an act of deep self-respect. When you live inside a home that honors you, you begin to honor yourself more fully in return. This video exists in part because of a life deliberately made more beautiful. One thing leads to another. Inspiration begets inspiration. And at some point you realize the magic was always in you. The space simply gave it room to breathe. The third practice is the one that has required the most courage, the most tenderness, and the most patience. It is mirror work. And if that phrase makes something in your chest tighten just slightly, I want you to know I understand completely. For most of my life, mirrors were not my friends. Looking at my own reflection felt uncomfortable in a way I could never quite name. It reminded me of the strange cringe of hearing your own recorded voice. The dissonance between who you are inside and what the world receives. At some point, a story was written in me that said, "You do not like mirrors." And I believed it so completely that I stopped questioning it. I do not fully know when that story was authored. I do not know fully when that story was authored. I suspect, as with so many of the quiet limiting beliefs we carry, that it was written before I was old enough to choose otherwise. But here is what I know now. We are never bound to the stories someone else wrote for us. We are allowed to pick up the pen. In recent years, I have chosen to shift that narrative entirely. Mirror work, the practice of meeting your own eyes, speaking kindness to your own face, witnessing yourself with compassion rather than criticism, has become one of the most transformative rituals in my life. It is deep, simple, and at times genuinely difficult, which tells you everything about how rarely we practice true self-witnessing. What I have discovered is that the discomfort is not permanent. It dissolves slowly and then all at once when you meet it with consistency and gentleness. And in its place grows something extraordinary, a quiet, unshakable sense of intimacy with yourself, a recognition, a homecoming. Woven through all of these practices is something more foundational than any single ritual or habit: the language I use to speak about myself and my life. Because I have come to believe deeply and without reservation that our words are not just descriptions of reality, they are the architecture of it. Every sentence you speak about yourself is a spell. Every story you repeat becomes a wall you live inside. When I said I do not like mirrors, I was not just describing a preference. I was reinforcing an identity. And identities, once spoken enough times, harden into something that feels like truth. That is the power of language. And it works whether you wield it consciously or not. So I chose to begin wielding it consciously. I choose to speak with intention from a place of self-reverence rather than self-criticism, not in the hollow performative way of affirmations you don't believe, but in the slow, deliberate way of a woman who is choosing, word by word, to rebuild a different story about who she is and what she is capable of. This is the truest form of rewriting, not the aesthetic changes, not the new habits, though those do matter, but the decision to become the author of your own narrative, to stop letting old wounds, old voices, old versions of yourself hold the pen. We create our own realities, and that is not platitude. That is an invitation, one you can accept at any moment, including this one. You are not your old patterns. You are not your old stories. You are the one who is choosing right now to become something new. So here is where I leave you, at least for today. Somewhere between the planning and the doing. Somewhere in the tender, terrifying, beautiful space of becoming. You do not need to figure it all out. You do not need a perfect plan or a curated aesthetic or all the right tools. You simply need the willingness to begin and the grace to keep going when beginning feels like too much. I am here. I am in it with you. And truly, I believe we are all capable of far more magic than we have yet dared to imagine. Until next time, take care of yourself, tend to your space, look yourself in the eyes, and begin. And stay magical.